Hello, I'm Ife.
This is my father's house, and you're welcome to my room. Think of this as a corner where we share our thoughts, opinions, ask some fun questions, and review the messages from our Tins and Gins Sunday. But most importantly, tie it back to our realities as youth living in this wonderful world. So let's get started. How
Let's
was your week,
my
Yvette?
my week was pretty amazing, very busy, but I like being busy because it keeps me, from being idle.
I feel you. I feel you on that. My week was super busy as well. Just adulting in general and getting the hang of things, work and all of that. But
I guess you could say that we have a lot of responsibilities.
exactly.
And the theme for this month or last month happens to be loyalty and responsibility. Wow, look at us.
Wow, look at us being in sync. So yes, in our last tips and gents, we talked about loyalty. Quincy did an amazing job, talking about the benefits of loyalty, being loyal to God and being loyal to God's servants.
Yeah.
I think if we wanted to talk about loyalty as youth and what that looks like, and so maybe some of the things we struggle with when it comes to loyalty,
Mm-hmm.
and other things that would apply to our lives right now, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome. So, what did you take away from this preaching?
That it's like more worth it to be loyal than to not be loyal. Like when he was going through the benefits of loyalty, some of those things I didn't even think about, and I was like, huh, it's almost as if it's rewarding to be loyal or something like that.
Almost. Yeah, I think for me it was more like when he talked about the parable when the guy gave 100 and he ripped 100.
Oh, yeah.
More like what you put into things is most likely what you get out of it. That's kind of what I took from it. So like in my relationships in life, my friendships and stuff, what I put into it when it comes to how much effort, how loyal I am to my friends, my family, my pastor, my team, is how loyal they would be to me. That's kind of how I
Yeah.
understood the
And
message.
that's such an interesting point because as you were saying that, I was just thinking, like, what if you're the one being like 100% in, but they're being like 50% back to you? And I was just thinking about the different dynamics in relationships when it comes to loyalty.
Has that ever happened to you?
Of course.
Tell me what happened.
I
Give us
think
the
I'm
deets.
a really like all or nothing person. So if I'm like in a relationship, let's say a friendship, I'm like I try to give my like 100%, and I've definitely been in situations where that person isn't giving me their 100% back, and I think I'm happy that I'm like aware enough to notice it, and then I like tend to take away that 100% that I'm given, you know.
Oh, so you like reduce your
I
amount of.
Yeah, I like rein myself back in because
Mhm.
I honestly do not like being in those situations where I'm the one giving my all and you're only giving me like the bare minimum. I really hate those situations, and I don't like seeing it on TV. I don't like seeing it on social media. It's like one
Mhm.
of my pet peeves. I really don't like that.
I mean that's normal. Like nobody ever wants to be taken advantage of. That's the
Hmm.
honest truth. But I think like a lot of us young adults really struggle with when it comes to loyalty.
Hmm.
Whether it's like with your friends, whether it's like in the dating world, even in marriages, being loyal, it's sort of like a rare commodity these days.
Yeah.
My thing is why, like seeing like the way Quincy illustrated it and the way he outlined the benefits of being loyal, whether it's to God or if it's to man, there are benefits. So why aren't we like in your case? Why is that person not giving you 100%? Like that's what I
Yeah.
want to understand, really.
Maybe it comes from a place of selfishness, like when we're more concerned about ourselves than the other
Mhm.
person. Because if everybody in this world was thinking about the other person, we'll
Mm,
be like, it'll be like super great. But we we live in a world of selfishness. So maybe that's why it's hard to be loyal to other people because you're thinking of how to protect your best interest, right?
You know what? It's actually funny you put it that way because, in the parable, he was talking about, when the master gave them like the talents and stuff. And then that last servant that was like, oh, I know you like this. That's why I didn't do it. Or that's why I didn't invest or, like the others. And the master was like, if you knew I was like this. So basically, if you thought about the other person, why didn't you do what would be beneficial to the other person
Yeah.
rather than thinking about yourself? Because in that case, the servant was thinking about himself and not wanting his efforts to just go to waste, to
Mm-hmm.
be unappreciated. Meanwhile, he should have been thinking about the master and what the master would want from him.
Yeah. And
So,
the interesting thing is that by thinking about the master, he would have like in the end, he would have
mhm,
he would have benefited from that, because the other
exactly.
two servants got stuff in return, you know?
And it's actually like if you put that in today's setting where it's like, okay, let's say the master is my employer, for example, or in church, the master is my department head or my pastor, really.
Mm-hmm.
And okay, let's say I'm in the choir, for example, and I have a choir leader, and that's the master in this situation. And the choir leader is telling me, you need to learn these songs, you need to do all these things, you need to fast before our performance, you need to do all this. And in my head I'm like, why do I have to do all these things when I know you're not going to pick me anyways to lead, and then the choir leader is like, well, if you know I'm very thorough, why don't you just put in the work and
Yeah.
then get recognized? I don't know if that like paints a good picture, but like that's what I was imagining in my head when he was preaching about that. I think it's like such a vivid um,
Yeah.
thing.
Because
Yeah.
we know we all like let's be honest, we all know we're supposed to be loyal, right? Like we know what to do. We just don't do it. Like let's say in a relationship, if you're cheating on someone, like come on, cheating isn't right, but you still do
Mhm.
it. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think you're right when you say it comes down to selfishness, thinking
Mm-hmm.
about yourself, not thinking about like the consequences your actions might have on the other person. And also I think it comes down to love because you know how Jesus said that's the greatest commandment. If you love your neighbor, you'd want to do what's best for them. You'd
Mm-hmm.
want to have their back because like when I hear loyalty, that's what I hear. You have my back, knowing that I can trust at all times that you got me. So
Yeah.
if you love somebody, you're gonna want to gut them at all times. You know what I'm saying?
That's
So
so funny to me.
and when there's love, there's no room for selfishness. When
Yeah.
there's love, it's not me, it's you that matters. So I think that's something our generation lacks.
Love?
Um, maybe they have it, but they don't know how to express it, or they're scared of being because loyalty comes with vulnerability
For
too.
sure. Yeah.
And I think we're very scared of that in general, and we're just scared of being we're scared of being the person that goes all in because we're scared of
Yeah.
being hurt. That's
Yeah.
why it's like, oh, let me match your vibe. Like, oh, you're putting point 0.5, okay, I'm just gonna do point 0.5 rather than you're putting in point 0.5, let me do 100 so that I show you how it's done and then you learn from me, you get better as a person. Now instead of one person being the 100%, we're both giving 100, if that makes sense.
Okay, so you're actually of the opinion that like you shouldn't rein yourself back in. You should keep giving your 100%, even though that person's only given like 50 or 70.
I mean, it's not like I do it. It's not
Exposed.
practice it on a regular, but I think that's the ideal world because if you think about it, like I'm sure there are situations where you didn't mind be giving 100 even though it wasn't reciprocated. I'm just thinking of like how I don't know if like you see like people on Twitter talk all the time like, oh, this is what I did one time because I had a crush on this person. I did like really silly things just to show them how much I cared.
Yeah.
There's situations where people actually don't really care if you're giving you 100. They just show it anyways because they care for you that much. And I'm saying that should be the norm.
Mm.
because like regardless of how that person feels, you still feel this way. So you should
Okay.
just, rather than saying, oh, instead of being Ife, who is a person with a big heart, very loyal, all or nothing, I'm gonna cut back or I'm gonna ration my loyalty.
Yeah.
Technically, you're gonna be rationing the benefits you reap, you
Mm.
know.
It's like kind of like, ooh, it's like don't compromise yourself or like don't change yourself to match another person's like vibe or energy.
Yes. Now, do I do that? Not frequently.
It's like that. It's like we know what we're supposed to do, but it's not always easy to do it, right? Yeah.
It's not because I mean we always want to protect ourselves. We don't want to be the
Mhm.
ones. We don't want to get burnt. We don't want someone to betray your loyalty. You don't want to have someone's back and then realize they don't have your back. That sucks. That hurts. So
Yeah.
I think that's what we struggle with, you know. And I'm just not sure how exactly we can overcome it so that regardless of where we are, we're given 100. Because if you look at Jesus, right? he was he had the back of people that didn't have his back.
Word.
Bible showed it. The people that crucified him and stuff, he had their back,
Yeah. Yeah.
and they still like. So now I'm thinking, as a human being, I'm just like, no, that's not gonna happen. No, you would not treat me like someone that's stupid. So I think
Uh-huh.
we're scared of being the fool in a relationship, so we protect or we hoard our
Our
loyalty.
loyalty. That's
Yeah.
so. As you were talking about like betrayals and stuff, I feel like it was somewhat personal. So, have you ever experienced like betrayal, or have you ever been in a situation where someone's loyalty to you was like not present, not evident?
Oh yes, yes, definitely. I think even like in day to day, like especially in like the work setting, you come across situations like that often where it's like you would have had this person's back if they were in your shoes, but when the tables are turned, it's like they just do what's best for them.
Yeah.
And like I said, that's the world we're living now, where everyone is always looking out for themselves. So even if back to relationships, even if they say they love you, they're still looking out for their best interest, which is counterintuitive if you think about love in the sense of love.
Yeah.
So yes, I've been in those situations, and I think the more you encounter those situations, the more it's it becomes hard for you to it becomes more and more harder for you. Am I saying the right thing? It becomes harder for you to always give your 100 because it's like once beating, twice shy, even though Jesus said we should forgive how many times? Some 17 times, 7 times. So but as a human being, there's no denying that it gets harder and harder every time that your loyalty or your trust or your friendship is betrayed. So
Yeah. But I feel like there has to be a balance somewhere between, being loyal, but like not being like stupid, or like not being a fool. Like where's that balance?
are you asking if
I'm
someone can be too loyal?
Yeah, or something like that. Like is there yeah, can you be too loyal? Is there a lip, you know what I mean?
I know what you mean. And like I'm like biting my tongue to not say yes, you can be too loyal because people would just take advantage of you. But I think as Christians, um, that's not a thing.
Okay.
I'm not sure why or how, but I just feel like we are always supposed to give 100 irrespective of what we're getting back because we're not really doing because I feel like when you say too loyal, you're comparing that loyalty to something, right?
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying? When you say something is too much, you're comparing it against something, right?
Uh-huh.
So we're not supposed to be we're supposed to be doing like Jesus, who's not comparing how loyal he is to us. Even when we are sinning, he's still loyal. So if you want to translate that to us now, it's like, even when I know you don't have my back, I'm still gonna show up for you.
Wow, that's so hard to
It
do.
is. It is. It is. But I think it's a very conscious, like you have to be very conscious about it,
Mm-hmm.
because it's like it could be a default to just, like you said, immediately withdraw when you're like not feeling the vibe, when you're not feeling reciprocated. It's like, okay, no, this is not happening. But I think the lives we're trying to live our lives, based on Jesus. We're trying to follow Jesus' example.
Yeah.
And if that's what we're actually trying to do, then that too much loyalty, it won't be in our vocabulary. I think it's hard, definitely.
Okay.
I don't know how we're gonna do it, but I think that's what I think. What do you think?
Okay, I agree with you. But maybe I think we should be like loyalty with wisdom. Like we should be wise about it. So, like, let's say you have a friend and you always have her back, you're always there for her. And like she's consistently proven that she doesn't have your back at all times. So maybe like you keep like doing you keep being yourself, but then maybe you like stop expecting, maybe you should stop expecting her to have your back so when she doesn't, you're not getting hurt. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it totally makes sense. But why would you? I mean, I guess when I'm saying loyalty, I'm not saying staying unfruitful relationships.
Okay.
I guess what I'm saying is, don't be wicked, like, because don't now set out to like revenge that disloyalty, I guess,
Okay.
that you're receiving from her. That's my understanding. Maybe there's even like a deeper way you can show that you're loyal 100% of the time. But I think my thing is, okay, this person has been disloyal to you. If you feel like that has affected your friendship to an extent that it can't continue anymore, that's fine. But it doesn't mean that you should now walk in spite, and
Okay.
try to, because that's what that servant was trying to do, saying like, oh, I've done this before and this man didn't, so I'm not gonna do it again. And then what he get? He lost what he had.
Mhm.
So I think that's the angle I'm coming from. But I feel like if anybody listening to this has like an even better answer to Ife's question, because to be honest, it's something we face in our lifetimes. Like, I'm sure every young adult has had somebody that they gave their 100% to and they didn't reciprocate in any way. So if you have any other answers for us, definitely feel free to reach out. But I think that's how I see it. Be loyal, but and also don't try to revenge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like don't go around like gossiping and like Yeah. Got you. I understand you.
Yeah, and I think something Quincy raised a very important question in his sermon. He said, everything we need is in God, because our anchor verse, Psalms 24, verse 1, basically says everything we need is in God, right?
Mhm.
And then he asks, if everything we need is in God, why aren't we loyal to God? Why aren't we giving God our all? Like, I'm just thinking, if I meet somebody today that's everything I need, every single thing I need, I'm pretty sure, I mean, I might be skeptical at first, but I'm pretty sure I'm going to give them 100% because they're everything. You know how people say, oh, you're my everything? You'd want to give them 100%. So why aren't we that way with God?
Huh. Okay, I think I just thought of two things. One, I think we're sometimes impatient.
Mm,
And two, I think we forget. So for the impatient point, you're like, God has everything, right?
hmm.
So let's say I'm asking God for a new job, right? And we all know that God has his own timing, but if I want that job tomorrow and I don't get that job tomorrow, then I might feel like, oh, I'm
Yeah.
looking somewhere else. So
You
that's,
don't like me anymore.
yeah. So maybe that's being impatient and not really understanding how God works. And to be honest, sometimes we just genuinely forget that God is there with everything, because there's so much distraction. There's so many distractions everywhere that are trying to actually like steal our attention away from God. And when we give in to that, we forget that God has been there since day one, backing us up.
That's actually so true. I feel like the job example was so real. Like it hit close to home,
Mm.
like because I mean we've all had situations where we were trusting God for something and we trusted that God will come through, God will have our back.
Uh-huh.
Maybe he did, but it was in a different way than we expected. So we
Yeah.
didn't appreciate that and we didn't stick with God. We were just like, okay, God, I guess you're not coming through for me. I'm gonna go try something else. So in that sense, we are being disloyal to God. But I mean, it's tough
Yeah, it is.
because that patience to trust that God has my back, even though I'm not seeing the results I want to see right now, it's tough. And it's so much easier to just be like, okay, you know what, like this is not working out. Let me go try something else.
Peace.
Time is going.
Peace
I got
out.
bills to pay. Things are not going well. Like God, I'm gonna see you next time. Okay. So I think that's very true. I can definitely relate to that. But like in those situations, what are we like? What can we do to like how can we I guess I'm basically trying to ask like how can we avoid being disloyal to God in those situations?
Okay, how can you avoid being disloyal to God? If you're constantly in God's presence and if you're constantly in that bubble of love and, grace, that's one way to avoid being disloyal. But
Mm.
in a more practical sense, I don't know. I feel like you can't be practical about that. I feel like the only like I'm gonna say it. I think you just need to ask for the help of the Holy Spirit, because like it's like, let's be honest, it's so hard to not give in to distractions. It's
Mhm.
so hard to not give in to like our flesh. So I genuinely believe, like, I don't think there's like a checklist or like steps I think just pray. Just ask God for help.
Like just take it up with God. I can't help you.
I don't know what to do.
You know what? It's so real that you said you can't be practical with that because it's all about faith, right? And I think half the time, if not all the time, faith is really not practical.
Mhm, it's true. Yeah.
So it's actually so true that you say you can't be practical with that. You just have to have faith. But then, like we said, faith in God or trust in God, it does take time to build that to a point where you're like, even though I can't see what I want, I still trust that God has my back.
Yeah.
I think the thing is, I think why we end up being disloyal to God is because we start to doubt
Oh
if God
yeah.
has our back. We're like, did he really hear me? Or like, I mean, does he even like, is he like mad at me for something? Or like, did I even pray well? Or like, I mean, maybe God just doesn't have my time right now. I saw a tweet one day. Someone was like, you guys are like clogging up the prayer lines with anything, so God can actually get to serious prayers. And I was like, sometimes it feels like that. It feels like God is not hearing you. And imagine you're talking to someone, imagine you're talking to your friend, and it just feels like they're not listening to you. You're gonna be upset, right?
Yeah.
Or imagine if you're asking a friend for something or asking a friend for help and they're not coming through for you the way you wanted them to come through for you. You're gonna be
Mhm.
upset, and then chances are you're gonna ask somebody else.
Yeah, for
Or you just be
sure.
like, yeah, this girl's playing right now. Let me go find somebody else. I don't think God likes that. I don't think he's cool with that. So, and or even worse, I think sometimes we go into the situation, like we go into asking God for help with a backup plan.
Guilty.
Same. So it's like, yeah, I'm gonna trust God to, I don't know, give me a good job after I graduate. But guess what? In case God doesn't come through, I have this friend that's gonna hook me up, and then blah blah blah. So
Or do you have those times where like you're praying for like this amazing job or this position, but like in your head you're like, it's probably not gonna happen.
Yeah, or you're like, even if I don't get it, at least I have this one. Just
Yeah.
that's like some things we do that shows that we doubt that God has our back,
Yeah.
and in that sense, we don't even give him 100% because we don't think he's gonna give us 100%, which is ironic.
Yeah, imagine like how annoying it must be
Yeah,
for God. Sorry,
yeah,
God. I'm sorry.
yeah. That's
Yeah.
ironic.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I don't know. I guess sorry guys, we don't have any practical steps for you when it comes to things of faith. You just, I guess, asking God for help,
Mm-hmm.
and then working on your trust in God, building your trust in God, and to a point where it's like, I know my mom typically says, like, even if it's not like what you want, just believe that God has your back and God is gonna come through. And she's very confident when she says that. And sometimes I'm like, how do you know? Like, how are you so sure that this rejection I'm getting right now, these things that are not going my way, are gonna turn around for the good?
Yeah.
And she's like, well, because God's plans for us are of good and not of evil. I'm
Mhm.
like, I mean, yeah, I know that, but like, how are you so sure?
It's faith.
Almost as if she like spoke to God. I don't know. But getting to that level of confidence in God, where it's like, regardless of what I'm seeing,
Mm-hmm.
I know you have my back. I think that's like you've unlocked the highest level: trust, loyalty, faith. You're good.
Yeah, and like imagine just how stress-free that would be. Like,
Sis, I know.
like I'm just trying to imagine.
It will be so stressful because like you literally have cast all your fears on God
Yeah.
and you'll be
Yeah.
good.
You're
But
just
like
floating through life. You're just chilling, knowing that God's carrying you. Wow.
it must be nice. I mean, I want to get to that level definitely because like sometimes what we stress about, it's not even cute, like to say the least. We shouldn't be stressing about these things even after we read our anchor verse and know that everything we need is in God. So if we have God, we have everything we need. So why are we just still stressing about things we need? Do you get me?
Ask us again. I don't know why.
But yeah, those are like the main things. Those were the main things. I think one last thing I wanted to ask you, or really throw it out there, is like Quincy touched on like some benefits of loyalty.
Mm-hmm.
And for you, what are some ways you've benefited from being loyal to God, being loyal to his service, or even like just being loyal to your friends? Like, what are some things, I guess, that keeps you going?
So in my in my experience, what I found is that like we know that you reap what you sow, right? But the way it's always been with me, I don't necessarily reap what I sow like in the same time period. I found that like something I did like a couple of years ago,
Mm,
I'll like I'll like reap it in like in some years after that, and it's not until I've gotten that thin that I look back and I'm like, huh, I guess
mm,
it's because of what I sowed back there that I'm reaping this now. So what keeps me going? But to be fair, like when I think of my relationship with God, when I think of my loyalty to God, I'm not in it because I'm thinking of what I can get out of it?
mm,
Like
mhm,
that's like a plus.
mhm,
So
mhm.
by not focusing on the benefits, it helps you keep going when, like, let's be honest, not every day is beautiful. Not every day is filled with like gifts and benefits and blah blah
That's
blah blah
right.
blah. So
That's
when those days come, it's like it's okay because I wasn't necessarily looking for them.
that's so true. Like you don't always benefit it like right now. Sometimes it comes in the long run.
Mm-hmm.
I think for me, what I've noticed is Because Quincy mentioned that one of the benefits was that God will establish you. And I
Mm-hmm.
know that's like could be a very vague thing to say, but when I think about it in like my life, it's like the relationships I've invested in, I've reaped that sort of establishment in that. Like I'm thinking of my circles, like I've been loyal to that. Like I've put in work, in that my friend circle, and I've reaped
Yeah.
that from that. Like, you have a sense of family for people that have
Mm-hmm.
family. It's like you're established within this group of people that just choose to love you just because. I think that's an amazing feeling.
Aww.
So I think when Quincy says like God will establish you or God will give you rest on every side, like if you want to think about it in real life sense, it's that like when you actually have some sense of allegiance. Like, he gave that example of the bats and how now they can't like they don't belong with birds or with beasts.
Beast, yeah.
If they were loyal to the birds, they would have had that sense of family with the birds. You know what I'm saying?
Cute, yeah.
But now they don't have anything because they didn't invest in one side. You know what I'm saying? So I think for me, it's just seeing that investing
Mm.
in my relationships gives me this. Obviously it's not always rosy, it's not always sense of family, you always fight with family too. You can argue sometimes, but just knowing that you have a group of people that got you.
Mhm.
I think as an adult that's like one of the top three feelings if you ask me.
Oh. I
Yeah.
just thought of one more. Like, one of the benefits he also said was that you receive knowledge of your calling. And I was just
Mm,
thinking about, like, because he also talks about, like, loyalty to your church leader. So, your pastor's loyalty to the church in terms of
yeah.
service. And, like, when I think of my father's house and how it started, like, if I wasn't in a position of, like, I had to be doing all those things, right? If I was never in that position, I would
Mhm.
have never, like, figured out that, oh, like, I can lead worship.
Mm. That's
I don't
actually
know
an
if that's like,
interesting.
but I'm just saying.
It's interesting you put it that way, but that makes so much sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
And even like I think even in my father's house, if like everyone wasn't like so invested in building that community, we wouldn't have that community now.
Mm-hmm.
If you get what I mean. If everybody was just like, oh, I'm just putting my 5% and take the rest, we would have a 5% community.
That's truth.
You feel me?
Yep.
So it's because we've all been intentional about building that community in my father's house where we're a family in our father's house.
Mm-hmm.
I
Good
think
job, guys.
great job, guys. We love that. And so I guess what are you taking with you in your back pocket for the
In
next
my back pocket, I'm just reevaluating those situations in which I've pulled back
month?
my 100%.
Mm-hmm.
So now I see that. Sorry. I'm so sorry. Sorry, I sprayed something in my mouth. I'll say it again. Okay. So I'm just thinking about those situations in which I pulled back my 100%.
Mm-hmm.
And now, before I saw it as like a way of protecting myself, but now I see it as I'm compromising my character and I'm
Mm.
not being true to myself. So I'm reevaluating that and I'm gonna go back to the old me.
It's not easy though, but I'm praying for you.
Thanks.
It's not easy. I guess for me, it's more on like my loyalty to God
Mm-hmm.
when I feel like when there's a bit of doubt in me, staying loyal and trusting that God has my back. I think that's something that I'm taking with me because like I'm not saying that I have the loyalty to humans part figured out, but I feel like that's much easier to work on once I'm able to figure out, staying loyal to God. So
Okay.
when I can't see, when I feel like that, like, every other thing is saying the opposite. So that's something I'm going to be working on over the next month.
You got this.
Thank you. But let us know, guys. What are you taking in your back pocket after these chins and gins, or if you have any tips on how we can or I can stay loyal to God in doubtful situations, and how if I can always be 100% without compromising her real self. In fact, do you want to tell them how they can reach us?
Of course, so you can send us DMs on on our Instagram, which would be somewhere in the description. Or you could, if you're watching this on YouTube right now, you could leave comments. If you have our phone numbers, if you have the privilege of having our phone numbers, you can text us, or you can send stuff in the MFH Youth group chat. So just feel free to reach out. If you have any stories of, loyalty or even betrayals, feel free to reach out.
Yes, yes. And we had an awesome time, just talking about loyalty and sharing our thoughts. And we look forward to our next episode and the next season, Gin Sundays. But until then, always remember, this is my father's house, and you're welcome to my room.